volunteered to fill in for our second speech for Teamwork Together. So looking forward to hearing both of those. And we'll have some time later on to cover table topics also. So I'll begin just by covering the roles for the meeting this evening. So Heather is going to be handling the grammarian role. Heather, why don't you tell us about the grammarian task?
Sure. As the grammarian, it's my job to count filler words such as and I also will keep track of the word of the day, which is spurious, meaning not genuine, authentic, or true. Not from the claimed, pretended, or proper source.
Okay, thank you, Heather. And Cody will be handling the general evaluator role. Cody, would you like to explain that role, please?
Sure, Justin. So I will be taking kind of tabs on how the whole meeting operates as a whole. And I will listen to both speeches, give an introduction to evaluator 1 and 2. And that's the basic role of the general evaluator.
And you, Wayne, will be handling the timer role. Would you like to explain the role of the timer?
Timer is to help the speaker control their minutes speed. And there will be 3 color. Green is the first that I mentioned, reminder, and the second one is the label. The color, yeah, it's a second reminder. And the last one is right. Should be stop in here. No, you mean it.
30 seconds.
30 seconds? Oh, okay, it's 30 seconds.
And then just to be clear about roles, the first evaluator is going to be Katie, and the second evaluator is going to be Mark. So we'll start with our first speaker here for this evening. Charles is going to speak, or I'm sorry, Thomas is going to speak about his speech, All in Jest.
Yeah, how many minutes?
4 to 6.
It's 4 to 6 minutes.
Thank you, Toastmaster. My name's Thomas Jester, and you can imagine with a last name like Jester, that probably had a large influence on who I grew up to be. It has, but as surprising as it sounds, it's not been the most influential part of the way I grew up. The most influential part of the way I grew up is I was raised by a father who was in school to get his Juris Doctorate after having an MBA and a bachelor's degree in general science. So I was raised by a rather nerdy guy. That got me into these types of hobbies that make me a rather geeky guy. My favorite thing to watch growing up was Star Trek: The Next Generation. Watching that show and watching Brent Spiner, who played Data, and LeVar Burton, who played Geordi LaForge, solve all of these hard, complex, yes, fictitious but complex problems using science and engineering inspired me to continue going to school being a relatively nerdy person. I studied mathematics, I studied engineering, and eventually became a civil engineer. That wasn't quite enough to keep me excited about what I was doing every day, and so I switched from being an engineer to being a water resource planner for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. What that is that you have to convince biologists, geologists, civil engineers, and historians to somehow magically speak the same language and agree on things, which, if you've ever sat in a room full of those 4 characters, it will never happen without help. But my geeky nature and my love of science made it so that I could fill this role really well and be very excited about my day-to-day tasks at work. Another one of my things that I call fandoms or passions in life was Middle Earth. For those of you who don't know what Middle Earth is, that's written by J.R.R. Tolkien. His entire series of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and beyond were written in Middle Earth. And that's actually what inspired my love of nature and going out camping and things of that nature. In fact, I look forward to the day when my son is old enough to not make it so camping's a pain, but make it so camping's a pleasure again so that we can go out and do more of it. In fact, that one, the Middle Earth, is So much my favorite of all of them it has become that my son can actually tell you the entire story of The Hobbit because he's seen all of the new movies, the old movie, and it's typically his bedtime story when he asks for one. To kind of indulge this now as a 32-year-old adult, this coming Friday, my son and I will be going to our very first Comic-Con in Pensacola. Also, on top of going on Friday, I bought weekend passes. So my son and my wife, and my daughter will all be going back on Saturday to enjoy it then as a family. So that I can just completely and totally be a geeky guy and be cool at the same time for 2 days. So my last name, though, does have an influence. I'm relatively energetic, and when you think about jesters standing in the court of a king, you think about an energetic, smiling, happy person. I like to think that I'm that person, but you also think about the guy who gets to tell jokes, and sometimes tells them at other people's expense. Unfortunately, I have all of those characteristics as well, because people just allowed me to be that way. So I'm 32 and still learning that making fun of somebody is not always the thing you're supposed to do. My last name did influence me. I still do try to make my wife and kids laugh on a daily basis, and with my kids who are 3 and 5, it's really easy. But with my 27-year-old wife, it's a little hard, but I'm still pretty successful at it. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thomas enjoyed that speech, and I can relate to a lot of that. I'm a Tolkien fan and read those books as a child, and another engineer, so all of that's right up my alley. So our second speaker for tonight is Charles. He's going to be speaking on teamwork together.
And before you get started, which speech is this?
This is teamwork together, the second speech,
For what?
Second speech.
parts evaluation.
Do you have a?
This is going to be for one of my advanced manuals that have not come in yet, when I've got to give 30 speeches.
Okay.
Teamwork together. In 1983, that was what I learned and experienced when I was 10, going on 11 years old, and played Little League Baseball on the championship team for the South Alabamians. That was our local newspaper that sponsored us. And while sometimes we thought the umpires might be spurious, we played hard and we won. We were undefeated. One of my best skills that year was the offense, the batting, because I was the leadoff batter. I went the whole year without striking out, and many times I was the #1 batting average at the end of the week on the weekend in the paper. And 3 of us played the key roles as pitcher, shortstop, and catcher. My 2 friends, Richard Skipper and Brett Beach. And we played by the simple ground rules. They throw a strike, swing at it. Either you're going to miss it, give it your best shot. And do your best to put the ball in play. And when you hit it, run. And when you're in the field, you throw strikes. And if they hit the ball, you play defense. You block the ball, do what you can. And that all applies to us here in Toastmasters. The simple ground rules. Having your president, your vice president of education, your chairman for the new members, and then special events like Lawrence was talking earlier, and the ones that volunteer to participate. And sometimes changing the time of the club, and attendance through computers, digital awareness. These basic ground rules, participation, is what we'll do when I become the area director, the coordinator, because your basic focus is active engagement, involvement, awareness of the pending issues, and your payment of dues, whether it's for the full year or only part of the term, attendance to the regular scheduled sessions events, education like in Daphne, Huntsville. Those are the basic ground rules that as you participate, helps your club become active, gets your dues paid, your member attendance, you increase your membership as y'all have done phenomenal recently. You've all seen that, and work towards becoming a distinguished club, getting the most CCs, CLs, or other ranks and advancements possible. After we won the championship, we had All-Stars. These were the top players in the league, and I was a member of that. My role changed. Like in Toastmasters, when certain people haven't shown up, or it's a new year and you get new officers, your role changed. What's the new part you can play at this point in time? With All-Stars, I could play defense if that was my weaker skill. So I played second base. Other teammates, like Cheesy Reeves and Spook Downey, played shortstop, pitcher-catcher in that role. And we had a good all-star, played as a team, followed the same process, same patterns, did our best, like we're doing here in Toastmasters. And finally, as you know, with our work and cooperation, together as a team, like I do in my club downtown, and deal with Top Hats today when I attended their meeting at the Red Lobster, and as you do here, we're all still engaged in our district events. And I would appreciate and request your support as a club for me being the next area coordinator or in the area division. And once we do that, we'll again request your participation and active engagement as a club. As I said to some of you earlier, we will have our 2 contests, likely scheduled in the spring, maybe February, March, then the fall, where you'll have your own competition here to select a winner. Then that winner will go to the area event, which I attended last year in Daphne. Then the winner of those contests will go to the higher level event. So that's what's fun. As you grow your club here and work to become a distinguished club and select your winners of the key events, we again are part of the district as we all become distinguished clubs. And as you all know, in the district we've recently had some clubs that have closed. Like y'all might have almost done once before you got all the new members. And part of what we'll be doing as a new rank advancement for some people is getting mentors as we build new clubs. And we're talking about 1 or 2 new clubs that might join us in Saraland. And so mention that to me or the other leaders here if you want to participate in that and get a mentor role to help as you get your new rank advancements and participate and stay engaged, following, that's right, teamwork. Thank you.
Charles. Charles, that was great. I liked that analogy between baseball and the Toastmaster roles. So now we'll be moving on to the table topics portion of our meeting, and Cody will be handling that. It's Cody.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's now time for the famous table topics. Do I have any volunteers who wants to tackle the first one for us? All right. The first question, what did you want to be as a kid? Thank you.
Good evening, Toastmasters and honored guests. Thank you very much. This is a very interesting topic because I had a very strange desire when I was a child. I wanted to grow up and be a hobo. I really loved hobo life. It was such a beautiful thing. These people, they believed that when you own something, that something also owns you. So by getting rid of everything that you own, you're totally free. You've got no responsibility because you don't own anything. If you own a car, you gotta buy gas, you gotta buy oil, you gotta take it in to get this done, you gotta do that, you gotta get tires. So it owns you to a certain extent. And so I always try to not accumulate things. So when I got to be in my early 20s, I finally had the opportunity. I put everything I owned in a backpack, and I decided on Friday afternoon, I'm leaving. On Monday morning, I started hitchhiking around the country. And I did that for a number of years. I came down here actually to do one season as a commercial fisherman, and then I was going to move on. Just make a little bit of money and move on. But that was almost 40 years ago, and I kind of got stuck. And since then, I've accumulated a lot of things, and of course that means I'm no longer free. I have other responsibilities. So I still, in some part of me, want to be a hobo. This
Thank you, Lauren, for that. Very interesting. So, any other volunteers for the next? All right, Heather. The next question: what is your current dream job? You could do anything you wanted to. What would you do?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. My current dream job, whenever I think about it, is being in a symphony band or in orchestral bands like bands that record for Star Wars and stuff, because I really like John Williams and everything. But I was actually talking to Charles before the meeting started about this idea that I recently had about after graduating maybe joining the military and being in a military band, because I feel like lately it's something I can visualize a lot better. And my family's been in the military my whole life, pretty much. We have a long line of people that have been in the Navy, but I was thinking that maybe I'd like to be in the Air Force or something. I don't know for sure. I've just started thinking about it, but like I said, it's something I can kind of visualize, and I think that I would be happier in that kind of situation, playing music and everything, rather than being in an office or something else. But if I don't end up doing that, then I would have a business degree to fall back on. So I think as of right now, that's something that I'm kind of excited about, and something that is kind of a dream for me. But I can also see it happening, and I think that I could definitely get in if I tried to. So that's kind of my current dream job. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, for letting us into your current dream job, and hopefully you can achieve that. Any other volunteers? All right. Next question. Would you rather have a private jet, supercar, mansion in the city, or an island house? House on an island. You can really take a look at it.
A little bit more of my family, I guess. Honored guests, fellow Toastmasters. Of a private jet, a supercar, or a mansion on an island by myself, I'd probably go for the supercar. I've been in love with cars since before my memory starts. My favorite show to stream outside of Star Trek and like Doctor Who, the science fiction stuff, is Top Gear and Grand Tour. And they're outside of Doctor Who and Star Trek. It's the only show that I will actually like. I'm not going to do anything else right now. I'm just going to watch. I love a powerful car. I drive a little tiny Civic, but it's a manual, so that I have at least something that feels like a supercar in it. I really don't like driving my wife's I guess it's an R6 Subaru Legacy, because it's not a manual, so it doesn't feel like a supercar. And so I would definitely pick the supercar. Thrilled to be driving it every day as well. Thank you.
We got time for one more.
Yeah.
Volunteer for the last one. All right, David. Are you a dog or a cat person, and why?
If I had to choose, I would say I'm a cat person. I had 2 cats growing up, one that we adopted like 2 days before my birthday, and I said that would have been a perfect birthday gift. But it wasn't, so it wasn't my cat. But she just was able to bring a lot of comfort, and I love the cats just have a lot of attitude. You know, they're like, they own the house, and I love all the videos where they're really mean to people, and they're just, you know, they take on a life of their own. And then we had a stray cat that we started feeding one day, and my mom called the shelter, and 6 months later we still had that stray cat. And so winter came in Pennsylvania, and the cat came inside, and it's still living with my parents. And so it's definitely, I love having animals that are just themselves, and it brings a lot of comfort and joy when you need it. And so I'm a cat person.
And that ends table topics for tonight. I will now have Justin come back up.
Well, you might as well just roll
Oh,
right
yeah.
into general evaluation.
No, you do that.
Oh, I do?
Yes, Toastmaster does all the introductions of
Okay,
the
I'll
next,
reintroduce you.
the next positions.
That's good. Cody, thank you. Okay, those were some great table topics. Really enjoyed those. I would have chosen the private jet, but the supercar is a good call too. So we're going to be moving on to the general evaluation portion of our meeting, and Cody's going to be handling that. Thanks, Cody.
So the meeting started 5 minutes late. We had a recess to kind of reorganize the roles. We got everything situated, and we had 2 good speeches that we ended up filming. So that was great. Maurice talked a little bit about the conferences that we have coming up for the educational overview, and Lawrence was able to find some volunteers for his leadership program that he's working on, so that was good. For the first speech, we had Thomas, and Thomas did his icebreaker, and that was great, and had a lot of energy, and I enjoyed hearing about that. And for the second speech, we had Charles, and he liked how he got the word of the day in early, which was nice, and he related Toastmasters to his youth baseball team, which was great. So now I will let the first evaluator, Katie, come up to evaluate the speeches.
So I'll be evaluating Thomas's first speech. He did a great job. I thought he was very confident and had a great flow to the speech of being able to follow a story. And I thought we were able to get to know you a lot between your interests and your family, your personality. So that was really nice to hear and get to know you a little bit more and how well prepared you were for this speech. I thought you had great volume. I think I noted that you picked up your speed a little bit during the stories and you got excited, so maybe slow down a little bit in those moments. I really like that your opening and closing kind of revolved around your last name, and there was a great connection between the speech as well. The only thing I said that I would improve on is there's a lot of extra movement, the swaying a little bit, and I like the focused hand gestures, but there's a lot of just nervous hand gestures as well. So that's the only thing I said that could be used to improve for your next speech. And that's it. Thank you.
The second evaluator will be Mark. Mark, go ahead and evaluate Charles' speech.
All right, thank you. I enjoyed Charles' speech tonight. He had a fantastic opening. I think he had the audience, he noticed hands when he talks about being on a championship baseball team. I think everybody in the room wanted to know where this story was going to go. And it was a great analogy between baseball and Toastmasters. I liked how he repeated his theme: ground rules, ground rules, ground rules. That was the theme of his speech, and it fit very well, both in baseball and Toastmasters. And I liked how he transitioned to the All-Star team, and how even in Toastmasters you have to adapt. And there's slightly different ground rules when you adapt to the new position that you're asked to take. I thought his conclusion was off, because he said, and finally, and then he went on and covered a couple more points. So I think you need to work on having a stronger conclusion and try and avoid the phrase "and finally." Just have some conclusion. You might want to just. Well, actually, I don't know what you would do unless you won the All-Star games. That would be a nice conclusion.
I pulled the conclusion. Oh yeah, there's another idea I can add.
Okay. One of the things I think you can work on is your vocal inflection. You did a very good job. You didn't have any filler words, but it felt like you were almost straining to not do filler words, and you had sort of a choppy pauses throughout all of your sentences. So that's something I think you can work on with a little practice. But I really enjoyed the speech, and hope you'll join us again and give us another speech.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for the evaluation of the second speech.
Yes, you introduce the timer and the grammarian also.
I do, okay.
Yes.
All right, now we'll have the timers report from you, Amy.
The first speaker, Tom, is 4 minutes. 17 seconds. Second one, Charles, 6 minutes. The table topics, all the speaker within 2 minutes. Evaluation, Katie, 56 seconds, and Mark is 2 minutes, 15 minutes. No, the second.
Thank you, Ewing, for the timers report. Now Heather will give the grammarian report for tonight.
Everybody did pretty good. There weren't a lot of filler words. I think I had a couple, and most people had a couple. I think Tom, Katie, Cody, Charles, Mark, but I don't think Maurice really had any, or Charles. So I think only one person used the word of the day, and that was Charles, and that is the grammarian report.
Thank you, Heather, for the grammarian report. So that is the evaluation for tonight. I will now relinquish the lectern back to our Toastmaster.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you.
Really good feedback with the group. It's always good to get some good critical feedback and learn how to improve your speeches and improve as you're moving along. So we're going to be moving on to an educational review, and Lawrence is going to be handling that. He's going to be discussing roles. Thanks, Lawrence.
Good evening again. This evening we're going to start our new educational program, where for the next couple of weeks we're going to try to give a little bit of a presentation about what the roles are in Toastmasters in the club scenarios. And because I am Vice President of Education for this year, for the next month or so, then I figured that would be a good thing to start with. And so, the Vice President of Education is a really good, important member as far as the meeting goes. The Vice President of Education is supposed to create the agenda, okay? He is the one who helps to set up the agenda. We use the Easy Speak Toastmasters website for our agenda, and that's very helpful in creating the roles that people get into. You can hit the auto button and it will automatically put people in roles. But the one thing that is the most difficult with the Vice President of Education is inspiring the members to actually volunteer for roles. And that's one thing I have not quite mastered in this past year. So another thing that the Vice President of Education does is to sign off on the leadership, the Competent Leadership Program, when people fulfill the roles for their leadership. And those roles are many and varied. Just about anything that you do in a club meeting at some point gets signed off in the Competent Leadership magazine. One of the new roles that's going to come up for the Vice President of Education in the next year is going to be the new educational program. And so the incoming Vice President of Education, whoever you may be, is going to have a really unique opportunity to create a new atmosphere and a new educational program for this club. So that's going to be a really good thing to do. Now, one of the things that very often gets brought up when you talk about a leadership position is how long or how much time do you have to dedicate to a leadership position outside of the club. So outside of our meeting, I would have to say that I probably do not spend much more than maybe an hour at most during the whole week, because with the Easy Speak program, it's already got emails set up. You just hit the button and it sends the emails. They're kind of form letters, but that's enough because people should know what they're supposed to be doing anyhow. So it's fairly easy to do that. I don't have to type up new letters all the time, although I probably should, because then maybe that'll inspire people to actually do what I'm asking them to do. But that's one of the things. Now, another thing that has to be done is to create mentors. And by the way, I need mentors. We've got lots of new people here who do not have mentors. And then also we need to make sure that the mentors are communicating with their mentees, which I have been very lax about in the last year. But these are the places that our new Vice President of Education, whoever you may be, will have the opportunity to improve. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, that was a great overview. You know, you mentioned Easy Speak several times. I think that's a great tool. It's important to use it. I know one thing I need to do is get on earlier and pick roles and make sure I show that I'm attending meetings, but it is a great tool and encourage everybody to make best use of it and make early use of it. I know I need to do more of that. So with that, we're wrapping things up. I'll turn the meeting here over to our president, Maurice. Thank you. Thank you.
You can turn it back over.
Right. The VP of Education, do you have at least a partial agenda for next week? And I know you won't be present at the next meeting.
I won't be present, and I'm going to be offline. I'm going to be totally escaped from any kind of anything. It's just going to be nice. Go back to the old world where you keep a dime in your shoe, just in case you have to use the telephone, right?
Right.
back in the day. Some of you
Those are good
youngins,
places to be. I've been to one of those.
some of your youngins don't know about all that stuff, but that exists. Actually, it looks like I don't have much of anything set up for this. Hold on for a second. Give me 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. We have Heather doing an educational overview. You can talk about your role as secretary, right?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have anyone down as a speaker.
I can speak.
I'll volunteer.
You want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll speak as well.
Okay, so I have to get that down. Why did I say that? Okay, Cody and Heather will be speaking. I haven't figured out which one's going to speak first. Katie, could you be the general evaluator?
Yes.
Okay. Maurice, you'll be the first evaluator. I'm hoping Julius will be here to be the second evaluator. If Jared shows up, he can be the grammarian. And if Steven shows up, he'll do table topics. And Paul is down as the timer. I don't know if Kedrick's going to be here. He's currently at Toastmasters as a Toastmaster for the evening.
Thank
I
you.
can do any of those.
Okay. If something else doesn't come up, we'll put you in as one of those positions. Okay? We will do that.
All right. With that, until next week, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thanks, Don, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great week.